Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Chicago Smart Podcast. Sorry, I've been gone for a bit. Just work has been crazy and life has been crazy. Work's been good. Again, like I said, busy. I say crazy just because there's a lot of things going on right now for me. Everything's good. Just nothing like we're in an emergency. Just kids, kid stuff, going to games and helping with homework and just overall, just with work, just being super, just really busy. I'm just tired, and I don't really want to give this a half-hearted effort, and really just give you guys a really good episode. So it's been a little bit. Kids were out last week for spring break, so I decided to be out as well, and I thought it was just better times better spent with them, doing things. Even though these podcasts don't go that long, I just didn't really want to take any time away from them. And I really didn't have a lot to say. I mean, there's a lot that's been going on in sports in general, not just in Chicago sports, but sports in general. Um, but I didn't really have a lot to say. I didn't really want to, record something where I didn't have a lot to say and not have a lot of opinions. And the baseball season's just started. I mean, it's pretty fresh. It's only been at this point not even a month since the season technically started. Um, at least with the Cubs and the Dodgers, they were that first came out, and then of course they all went back to spring training with everyone else, and then started the regular season. Um, so on that note, what I really want to talk about is again, this is where we're going to come up on 2 weeks now, so I'm a little 2 weeks behind on this opinion, but nonetheless, it's my opinion. It's my podcast, so I'm going to say it anyways. Um, at the point of what I'm going to talk about now, which is David Kaplan. Look, I'm not trying to pick on the guy. The guy sometimes comes out as a fan, and I always put myself in that position. If I was him or any of these people that are on the radio, and I'm a fan of the Cubs or the White Sox or whatever team that I'm a fan of, even if I wasn't here in Chicago, a fan of another team in another city, another state, how passionate would I be if I had a platform that I was on every day for 4 hours a day? And would I let some of that fandom show through? I mean, I think so. But I think also, too, sometimes some of these takes come from more of a fan um, and a sort of a hot take, quick reaction. So a lot of the times that's where it comes from with him. And it kind of upsets me a little bit because it's an overreaction, right? Think we as fans sometimes always overreact over everything. The first Bears game, they lose it, and whether they lose it by a touchdown or they lose by a bunch of points, they get blown out. Or if they win the first game, oh well, they're going to the Super Bowl for sure. Or hey, the Cubs win a couple of series. Hey, they look like serious contenders going to World Series, and or whatever sport it may be. Sometimes we tend to overreact one way or another. I felt that David Kaplan's reaction to the end of that 4 game series between the Cubs and the Diamondbacks. Mind you, this was their second series of a very young season. They went into Japan, they lost 2 of the games, or both of the games, I should say, with the Dodgers. They just didn't look like they were prepared, and it just looked like it was just a lot of things going on, right? And it was already gloom and doom after those first 2 games, and it was just like, eh. I mean, it was cool. Like it was a cool novelty watching them play in Japan, and I was one of the ones that woke up. Well, the first game, I woke up at 5 a.m. The second one, I think I woke up around 6 or 6:30, and kind of caught like the tail end of the game. But for the first one, I sat there. I sat on my recliner by myself. My kids, my wife were all asleep. It's 5 a.m. in the morning, and it just seemed like it was more like a showcase, sort of, so to speak, right? And not just only for Otani and for the other Japanese players on the Dodgers and the ones on the Cubs. It just seemed like it was a showcase. And even if they won the first 2 games, I'd have said it's a showcase. And I feel like they should have been exhibition games because the Cubs and the Dodgers also played exhibition games against some of the Japanese teams out there before they played those 2 real games, right? We're losing 2 games at Wrigley, um, 2 home games at Wrigley, right? So there would be 2 less home games at Wrigley because these 2 games, the Cubs were technically the home team, even though if you were watching it, you couldn't really tell that. And I'm not talking about the final result of the score, just the coverage and the way they were talking about it is that the Dodgers were the home team. But again, I wasn't really sweating it. They went into Arizona, and it looks like they were going to take 3 out of the 4, which was wow, that's pretty good. Instead of starting the season, you know, uh, 2-4, they were going to. I'm sorry, yeah, 2-4. They were gonna, they were gonna start the season, 4-2, right, versus 2-4. Which again, it sucks because the way they lost that game on Sunday sucked because the bullpen blew the game. I can understand that, right? And it sucks that they lost. But again, it was a very young season. They were going to go into another, by the way, opening day. They were going to go into Sacramento to play the A's, and it was just too soon. They were 2-4. It was too soon to make any judgments about Kyle Tucker, Matt Shaw, anybody in that lineup. It just pitching everything. It was too soon. It just was too soon for me. Kaplan, I always watch his recap at the end of every game. If I can, if I get a chance, he usually does it 30 minutes to an hour after the game is over. And this is just basically his reaction to that game. He does it for the Bulls, the White Sox, the Cubs, and the Bears when those teams are in season. His reaction was to say that came from more of a fan perspective, right? Like instead of being I guess I'm not sure to really call him a journalist. I would say maybe he's a radio personality. But again, he does has a platform that I don't have, right? I don't have that access. I guess I could try to have that access to, to the players and to people that he could talk to on the radio, but I don't have it, right? He comes out and he says that Craig Counsell is the most overrated manager in MLB. He's overrated. He's not worth this. He's not worth that. After 6 games, because he blew it by leaving somebody in there from the bullpen too long. What do you suppose the man does? Right? They pay these men, relievers, the bullpen, to get outs. He can only manage the people that he has. He cannot put on a glove. He does not put on a uniform other than to manage. And I get it. Sometimes managers overmanage a game or they mismanage a game, right? And I can see that. And say, man, this sucks. But to say he's overrated after 6 games, after this man was singing his praises when he got hired and they fired David Ross and they brought this man in on the richest contract at that time for a manager. Oh, this and that, and oh, now we're really gonna take the division. It's like you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth because guess what? You're gonna end up looking stupid at some point, right? And did this man look stupid or this man look stupid? They went into Sacramento, mind you. It is a minor league park, right? And just completely destroyed the Athletics that first game. And they just were scoring runs like it was going out of style. And maybe that's what they needed, right? To get their mojo going, to just get some reps in there and get their mojo going and go, right? Because they did it to Arizona in the first game, right? Where they scored a bunch of runs against Arizona. They just looked like just a completely different team that was the team that was in Japan against the Dodgers. But to call the man overrated after 6 games, that is a bad take, a really, really bad take. You could say, man, he really messed up. Man, Counsell, I thought he, he was better than this. I thought that maybe he would be able to manage the situation better. I'm not saying for you to say anything positive because there wasn't anything positive to say. To say, hey, man, the Cubs, the offense was great, but the bullpen blew it, right? But to go on a rant and call the man overrated, and then the man, not only, I'm not gonna again, he didn't do it himself. The team did it when they got to when they got to Sacramento. I keep wanting to say Oakland when they got to play the A's, right? They played really good against the A's. Then all of a sudden, well, now they're gonna, now they're gonna come home. They're gonna finish with the A's. Now they're gonna come home. They're gonna play San Diego. They look good against San Diego. They look good against Texas, where they're first in a lot of categories, right? So for you to go that extreme after 6 games, I want to see that same energy. If I don't know, for example, the Bears start stumbling and they go 2-2 or 2-3, right, through the first 5 weeks. Is that man going to come with that same energy? Of course not. He's going to have every excuse in the book to to tell you, oh, this is different. It's a different sport. No, you cannot call a manager overrated after 6 games. How is he overrated? How is he overrated? And the man said he didn't come here to manage the bullpen, right? Because if they're going to bring him in to manage the bullpen because he's just so good at it when he was with Milwaukee, forget him. Take his name out of the consideration, right? So Jed said, no, 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 no. We want to get over that hump. We want you to bring some of that magic or some of that thinking you had in Milwaukee. We want you to be a valuable piece. We want you to be able to have an opinion as not only the manager of the Cubs, but have an opinion on players and development and all this kind of stuff, right? Be involved, right? Because he had that role before he became the manager of the Brewers. But to call him overrated, I thought that was just a little too much after 6 games, right? But again, it comes down to the relievers. The relievers get paid to do their job and throw strikes, and obviously don't throw meatballs, right? That's hard, right? I've never pitched a game in my life other than on a video game. So I'm sure it's not easy. But again, you got to understand going from spring training to a regular season is two different things, right? In spring training, I'm not saying that these guys are not trying to get their reps in, trying to get warm for the season. But again, nobody's trying to get hurt either. It's like, I'm going to give you as much as I can give you, but I'm just going to try different pitches, right? So a pitcher might look really good in spring training, just like they do in training camp if it was football, but that doesn't translate into a season. When the games really start counting, that's when those guys really give it their all. Not to say that anybody was dogging it in spring training, because Pete Armstrong was having a great spring training, but now it's a little shaky right now in the regular season, right? But to go that route, I just thought it was a bad take, and he tends to have those bad takes a lot. This is why one of the main reasons I have this podcast is because I can call in that Monday morning and hope to get on the air, hopefully, because I don't know how many calls get put on the air, and how the producers screen everything to get a call on, because they'll ask you, hey, well, hi, thanks for calling. Somebody will screen your call. Oh, what do you want to talk about? Okay, this is David from blah blah blah. He's calling in to talk about Cap's overreaction or whatever. How they're going to introduce me to get me on the air. If I call Cap on that Monday morning and say, Cap, dude, you were way off. You're being a meatball right now. The guys that you make fun of that are meatballs, that have these bad takes, you're being a meatball right now. What's he gonna say? Oh, you don't know anything. Blah 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 blah. Whatever, Sparkles, and hang up the phone on me. And then him and Jonathan Hood are gonna make fun of me. But again, this is what this podcast is about: is me getting my voice out there and having a platform to give my takes. My takes are not always going to be right either. There might be somebody else out there that feels Counsell's overrated, but that's okay, and that's fine, because we're allowed to have those kind of takes. But when you have somebody who's doing it after 6 games, I'm sorry, I'm going to call you out on that. And for sure, it's not something that I take it to heart, but it's just like, I would dare him to contact somebody at the Cubs and be like, hey, can you pass this message on to him? No, right? Because I don't know if Craig Counsell even knows that David Kaplan has these recaps, if he even pays attention, because a lot of times these guys just ignore some of these takes from these, radio personalities, because they're out there sometimes. And it's just like, if you listen to everything in the media, you're going to drive yourself crazy. But imagine, what is he going to say? Yeah, who cares? At the end of this, I'm going to have $40 million. And what are you going to have? Forget you, basically. I mean, for lack of a better term, there's another F word that you can use to basically tell Kaplan sure what Counsell felt, right? Four-letter word ends with you, right? And it's just like, it was a bad take. After 6 games, I just thought it was a bad take. But let's move on to the next thing, because I can probably have an entire podcast ranting about David Kaplan, and sometimes that guy's just a meathead. He's a bonehead sometimes. Kyle Tucker. Everybody's talking about this guy because he just seems to just be like ridiculously good. And again, I didn't see a lot of Kyle Tucker because I didn't see a lot of Houston Astros baseball. But again, I could hear, that he was, or I heard, I should say, better phrase it. I heard that he was just a really good player. He doesn't really show a lot of emotion. He's kind of just more really stoic. So if he's having a good time, a bad time, he's not really going to show it a lot. He's not a guy that shows his emotions a lot. But he has brought something to the Cubs that is really good that I didn't know that he was going to bring. And that's just me. Maybe that's for me, lack of understanding. Whether he's batting second or whether he's batting third. So if it's going Ian Happ, Tucker, Suzuki, or they're going Ian Happ, Suzuki, Tucker, it just makes that lineup better, right? It elongates the lineup because now there's guys that are seeing different pitches down that lineup depending on how Ian Happ got up there. Did he get a base hit? Did he get walked? Now they got to face Kyle Tucker. They got to face Suzuki. Vice versa, right? Or they got to face Suzuki first and then Tucker, right? These guys are seeing better pitches. They're being more patient. He is helping them with that, right? He's being a catalyst. How much is that worth? That's the part I want to kind of get into. That's the talk that everybody's been talking about. After Vladdy got his $500 million, will he go for that? Are they going to even try to offer him anything close to that in season? From what I understand, I think him and his agency are receptive of talking about during the season. But again, if I'm him, I'm going to wait till the end of the season because I can then start writing my own price tag. I don't want to go ahead and undervalue myself and take whatever it is, right? 10 years at whatever, $50 million, that makes it $500 million, or whatever it is to make it 550, right? Is he going to do that and shortchange himself, or is he going to wait to the end of the season and actually see who's the highest bidder? Is it the Cubs? Is it Is it the Yankees? Is it whoever it is, right? That wants to try to get into the Kyle Tucker business, right? I don't. And honestly, if the Cubs do sign him in season and extend him in season, of course I'm going to be happy, but I'm going to be really surprised because I don't see it happening for two reasons. I want this man to stay here. If he can provide this for us, not only offensively but to help the rest of the lineup, to elongate it or make it better and longer, where you're getting better at bats from a Dansby Swanson, who, by the way, is healthier. So maybe that's where the at bats are coming from. His defense has always been good. He's had some times when it's been a little shaky the last 2 years, but for the most part, his defense is really, really good. But now his offense has started to catch up to that defense, and the man doesn't have to hit 30 home runs, 20 to 25. If he can hit 20 to 25, that's wonderful, right? Now I'm talking about Dansby Swanson. It just makes that lineup better, right? How much is that worth? Right? Is the conversation at the end of the year going to be, man, that year with Kyle Tucker was great, but look at him. Now he's over here with the Yankees. I don't even want to mention the Dodgers because the Dodgers get everybody, but who knows, right? I don't know where they're going to put him. But whatever. Let's just argument's sake say the Dodgers or the Phillies or another team that thinks that that's the piece that we need, right? To really push through, right? If it's not the Dodgers, to really say, hey, to push the Dodgers, right? To see if we can really push them, right, for that pennant in the National League. How much is that worth? I don't see Tom Ricketts opening up his wallet to do it. And I want to be wrong. This is the one thing I so want to be wrong. I want to be able to record a podcast and say, man, the Cubs actually made a move and they signed Kyle Tucker to a very long extension, very good money, and he's going to be here for a while, right? He's going to be in that Cubs uniform for a very, very long time. But I don't see that happening for two reasons. One, as much as Ricketts doesn't want to admit it, he's too cheap. He's not going to give him that long of a contract. And secondly, at the end of the season, if Kyle Tucker was to the end of the season, I don't know how that works. Like, literally, the last day of the season, whether they make the playoffs or not, that last day of the regular season, let's say they don't make the playoffs. Let me actually go back a little further. Let's say they don't make the playoffs. Whatever that first week of October is that the regular season ends, is Jed Hoyer no longer that have that position of president of baseball operations for the Cubs? Does it end there, or does it end if, say, the Cubs make it to, and again, I'm not predicting they're going to make it there, I'm just giving you an example. They make it to the division series and they lose, or they make it to the NLCS and they lose, right? Does that end the minute that their season technically is over, whether it is regular season because they couldn't crack the playoffs, or is it at the end of that playoff run, whatever, how long that playoff run is? Are they going to negotiate with Jed Hoyer during season? Are they negotiating now? Because if it ends at that point, then who pitches this man to Tom Ricketts? Is Tom Ricketts going to go out there himself and pitch himself for that, right? Who is it? I would love to know. Does Carter Hawkins then move to that position? And Carter Hawkins is the one that's going to make that pitch. That's the one thing that I really want to know about, but I don't see it. I don't see them opening up the wallet. Also, too, because there's some sort of strike that they said is looming after the 2026 season, right? So is he going to want to tap the money not knowing there's going to be a strike? That's going to be his out. Hey, I can't give this guy 10 years or 12 years or however many years he wants to give him because I don't know what the future is going to hold for baseball. And we've already suffered biblical losses in 2020. Don't even get me started on that again because it's insane to see how much value this guy's bringing into your team right now through the first two half, maybe 3 weeks of the season. What kind of value he's bringing to your team? Is he going to slump? Of course. All players slump. How long is that slump going to last? But if that slump is lasting, is everybody else or pieces of that team going to carry you? Right. So if Tucker's slumping, is Suzuki going to carry you? Is Happ going to carry you? Swanson, Horner, is Shaw going to start carrying you at some point? Right, giving you maybe that little boost while he's slumping. But again, he makes your lineup better. And all you need is proof of those first 3 weeks. If you want to take it even to the All-Star break and see what that man gives you from the beginning of the season to the All-Star break, then you really start thinking, okay, we're at midpoint at this point, right? Trade deadline's coming up in a few weeks. What do we want to do? Where are we at? Where will the Cubs be? Because right now, the only way they're going to justify me taking my family, which is a family of four, to that park every year and paying the prices that I am hearing that those concessions are going for, is getting somebody like Kyle Tucker. Because at least you can at least say, hey, That $10 hot dog, which is a really expensive hot dog, by the way, at least I can say, man, that's what they're using to pay Kyle Tucker, right? The concessions and everything else. And I know that's not true. I know that the money for the concession, that's probably used for something else. Again, that's something that has been on the mind not only of me, but there's been other people that have read their articles in The Athletic, just listening to just MLB Network. They would love to know what's in those books for Tom Ricketts. How is that budget? How's that budget made? He's never going to open those books, by the way. It's not happening. He's not opening the books to tell you, because if you don't see it publicly that, hey, they have a new sponsor, you won't know. I just recently found out that Motorola they have on the patch they have on their jersey, and there's also a Motorola sign behind home plate. I know that they got that in 2020. They're making $100 million for that, not per year, over a 10-year period. So it's $10 million for 10 years, right? And again, $10 million is $10 million. At least to me, it's quite a nice chunk of change, if you want to call it that, right? But right, but how much is it for the Coca-Cola sign out in left field? Do I have that right? All the little branding around, that's not pocket change, right? As I understand, the sports book that's connected to it, they get a piece, I think, of the profits from the restaurant, and they're charging them rent. Don't know what that rent looks like, right? But again, you have a sports book attached to your stadium, right? It's not across the street. It's not down the block. It is attached to your stadium, because as you're exiting Wrigley Field through the, I can never remember that street. I apologize. I'm probably gonna goof this up. I don't think that's Waveland. Whatever that street is near the Harry Carey sign, the sports book is connected to the end of that. So that maybe not by the bleachers. I take that back, because the bleachers is where the Harry Carey statue is at. It's more towards, oh my God, I'm gonna say probably right field. And I'm sorry if I can't remember, goofing up, remember the street, those cross streets where it's at, right? But it's attached to your stadium. There's got to be some sort of incentive you're getting out of that, or you wouldn't attach a sports book to your stadium. But Tom Ricketts is never going to tell us that, right? That doesn't make me any less of a fan, because I question things. As a fans, we should question things, because we're going into that stadium and we're buying that $10 hot dog and that $12, $13, cup of hot chocolate, right? That's been in the news recently, that people are not shy of telling you how much the prices are when they go into the stadium. And in fact, a few months ago when they were at the Cubs convention, he said that somebody who would ask him, "Hey, why is this, cup of soda of this Pepsi, which by the way is watered down?" It's like, and I'm saying that he didn't say that. There's $12, whatever, right, for whatever, like a cup of Pepsi or whatever the size of cup that you get, right? Oh, it's to pay for that $20 million pitcher. Where? What $20 million pitcher? Right? And again, this is not disrespecting Jameson Tyone or anybody else that they signed recently, but these guys are going to start coming up for extensions pretty soon. Specifically, Steele and him and I gonna at some point they're going to come up for an extension. If they're consistent and they're good over that period of time, are you going to let these men walk out the door because you're not willing to invest? Yes, I know you have to produce talent, right, out of the minor league system, but at some point you got to pay somebody, right? You got to build your team around somebody. Carter Hawkins was talking about it this morning on the Score, that Kyle Tucker's the kind of guy that you'd want to build your team around. So what the heck are you guys waiting for? I'm not saying you offer him an extension tomorrow, but if you want to give it till All-Star break, give it to the All-Star break. If he doesn't want to talk about the All-Star break because he's like, hey, I'm in season and I changed my mind, I don't want to talk about it, let's talk about it at the end of the season. I don't care when that season ends, if it's that first week of October because they don't make it to the playoffs, or whenever that playoff run ends, you get on the phone and you say, what is it going to take to bring you back here for another year? Hey, you know what? I want to hear everybody else's pitch and I'll come back to you guys. They should be the highest bidders every time. And I get it that the Dodgers have that massive contract with, that pays them all that money, and the Otani money that they're getting because it was deferred. But they should always be in the mix, period. I just don't want to come at the end of the season and say Kyle Tucker left and win here, and the Cubs were the third best offer. Because that's what happened with Bregman, by the way. And the Bregman one's like, like I said before, I'm not exactly too upset that Bregman didn't come here. I hope he has a great season with the Red Sox because, again, that's my second favorite team. But the fact of the matter is that it came out that they were third. It literally was 1, Detroit 2, 3. How were they outbid by the Detroit Tigers? And again, this is no disrespect to the Tigers. How were they outbid by the Tigers? Can you tell me that? Can you tell me that? That's just it's nuts to me to think that this man is going to tell you that he is crying poor, but everywhere you look around that Rickettsville, which is what I call it, because it's formerly Wrigleyville, now it's Rickettsville because he owns almost every piece of land like it's monopoly, right? And owns half the board. You're going to cry poor. Come on, no, you cannot be crying poor, especially when you got a guy like that you got him in your building, right? And I get it that maybe these last couple of days are maybe not going to sell them on Chicago because it's super cold in April, right? Man, maybe when that summer comes and he starts to see them in a run and they can get in a serious contending run, and then maybe if they see that they're contending and they got that extra money that they didn't spend from the Cody Bellinger thing, they say, hey, this is what's going to get us over that hump, right? To maybe really challenge this year. Let's keep them in the building and say, hey, we got as far as the NLDS and Philly took us out, or whoever the team that takes us out, or the NLCS, we were so close and the Dodgers took us out. What is it going to take to keep you here so we can then really push on through? See it happening, but I want to be wrong. Moving on to the next topic, which is the pitching and the bullpen. Bullpen is just shaky right now. I mean, I don't know how long of a leash Counsell is going to give Presley before he flops him, or as people are saying, flip flops him for Hodge and have Presley eighth and Hodge in the ninth. I don't know. And how long is he going to give the leash? Like, I don't know, right? The pitching has been really good. I know Steele's hurt right now, but if they can just sustain for just a little bit until he gets back, and they can get to this tough stretch because tomorrow they start a West Coast trip, three with the Dodgers, and then another three with San Diego. And from there, I don't look beyond 6 games because that's just too much for me. I know they got Philly coming up, but still, those 6 games out in California, if they can go 4-2, that'd be great. Heck, I even take. Hold on, let me think about that. 6 games, 3-3. That'd be nice, right? Try to come out at least 500 or better, right? Try to get in there 500 or better. The Dodgers struggled a little bit against the Nationals. Not sure if that was due to pitching because the guys they had out there. Because tomorrow they're going to have, I believe Sasaki pitches tomorrow. Or is it going to be Yamamoto? I would have to just double check my schedule. But again, they're going through a tough stretch right now, and it's going to take a lot of investment from that team to just get to that stretch. They're going to have warmer weather. You never know, right? You can't go in there and say we've already lost 6 games. We lost 2 to the Dodgers. We just can't compete with that team. I don't know if Freddie Freeman's coming back. When is he coming back? But they have a talented team regardless, right? The Cubs just got to just keep doing what they did against the Padres and they did against the Rangers this week. And it's just play just hard-nosed baseball. Take that extra base when they can. Just hustle, right? It's a tough stretch. It's going to be tough. But I think if they can get through it 3-3, 4-2, that'd actually be a very successful road trip. I don't know if they're going to go into Philadelphia or they come home from Philadelphia again. I apologize for that, for not having that in front of me. Speaking of overrated, now this is just my opinion, and you guys are probably going to think I'm crazy. The manager that I really do think is overrated, and you guys are going to think this is crazy. I really believe Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, is overrated. And here's the thing. I don't even hate the Dodgers. I don't even dislike the Dodgers. So if the Cubs are playing the Dodgers, I'm cheering for them, but it's not like I have that disdain or that natural rivalry with them like I would with a Milwaukee or a St. Louis, right? Because hate's such a strong word. I just feel like he's overrated sometimes, and I find a lot where he's overrated, where I find that he gets exposed the most is on a national stage. What I mean a national stage is they're a national stage because of Otani, right? Like, so all their games are like these big, to dos, right? But I'm talking about like in the playoffs. Yeah, they won the World Series last year, and nobody can take away that from them, right? They played against the Yankees. They took them out, 4 games to 1. That they deserve that. Period. Right? Any World Series that they've won, even the 2021 in the bubble, somebody had to win it, and there's always going to be a little asterisk. Whether it would have been this team or that team, they won it. Period. Right? I just think he's overrated because I think he thinks he's smarter than everybody else, and I think he's an intelligent guy. I've heard him talk before. So it's not about like intelligence. It's baseball intelligence sometimes because sometimes he coaches too much with his emotions, and I'm not saying this as a stats guy or sabermetrics guy or anything like that, right? I'm talking about like literally just emotion. Like he just tries to be smarter than the other manager. The other manager sometimes will just switch something up on him, whether it be a hitter, whether it be whatever, and it kind of throws him off. But that's just my thoughts on it. I just feel he's a little overrated. Could he do the same job that he does now with a lesser team? And I'm not saying put the guy on the White Sox because Will Venable is going to do as best job as he can because he has to manage the guys that are there. So this is not a knock on the White Sox. This is not anything against anybody, right? Can he do the same job if they put him with the Phillies, which again, they have a great team, right? They have a really, really good team. Could he do the same thing with the Braves? And I'm talking about like teams that are good. I'm not talking about these teams that are on the come up, right? Like the like the Pirates, right? The Pirates have two really good pitchers, but that offense needs a little bit to be desired, a little bit to be desired. Could he do that with another team? Could he do it with the Padres? Could he do it with Arizona? Again, a lot of very talented teams. Could he do that if he didn't have these superstars? Because he literally has an all-star team almost there like every night, right? Like Otani, Betts, Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez. Like people just don't give these guys enough credit. This is not me hating. Man, I wish them all the best of luck in the world. And I hope that when we play them this week and in the future, that we do good against them and that we can prove that we can hang with them, right? I have no animosity towards the Dodgers because they got Otani and because they have everybody. I mean, it is what it is, right? I don't have that disdain. Maybe later on, I could probably grow to that disdain, but I don't have it yet for them. I don't know why. It's just not. I just don't like their manager. I think he's just very smug, and I just feel like he's overrated. But then again, that's my opinion. That's why it's my platform, right? um, and I just think, like I said, the NL West is really good this year, right? And except for the Rockies. And unfortunately, the Rockies, that's a whole different animal there. But you got the Dodgers. You got, obviously, the Padres. You got Arizona. Those teams are really, really, really good. And they're all fighting for that spot. They're not going to just lay down because they're in the same division as the Dodgers. And the Dodgers know that, right? Because even Dave Roberts, who I was just talking about, admitted it. He said that their biggest challenges to repeating is to get through that first round. If they get through that first round of the division series, then he feels like they got a good chance to move forward. And he is completely right. Because if the Dodgers don't take over and get into that next gear against the Padres were going to beat them last year. They had them beat. And psychologically too, because the Dodgers just were getting upset with the Padres antics and all that baloney and that bullcrap that was happening out at Petco Park, right? And Tatis doing the little tongue wagging thing and just being just an absolute just troll, right? And that's where I feel sometimes he gets overmanaged because he gets emotional, and it's hard right not to get emotional in those moments, right? Because you're human. But the NL West is good, and they know that the NL West is good, and they're going to continue to compete regardless of the records of those teams, right? San Diego's got a good record. They're the first team to ten wins so far, um, barring any different, barring anybody else, winning a game tonight that gets it to 10 games. And I don't think anybody's close to that. Maybe the Cubs, I think. But again, I apologize for not bringing accurate data here. So my apologies. I'll try to be better than that in future episodes. But again, the NLS is really good, right? They're a good division. They're just it's always a good division. It's a tough division. Um, the East is going to be a good division if Atlanta can just sustain it somehow and make a turnaround. But Atlanta's having a really hard time. The Mets are going to try to take that next step, especially with Juan Soto. And Philadelphia is always Philadelphia. They're always scrappy. They're always trying to fight hard. But the NL West is really good this year. I didn't know how good it was going to be, but I mean, aside from the Padres, Arizona's they're a good team. Period. The Diamondbacks are a great team. They got a lot of good young players. They got some players locked up. They got a great manager in Torey Lovello. So it's going to be a good season, and I predict that NL West is going to be really good. If the Dodgers take a really big lead, that just means that they're just playing just out of their mind, insane baseball, right? For them to take like a big lead, but we'll see. I'm gonna come back around in July, right around the All Star break. I mean, I'll do shows between then. I'm not gonna leave you guys for that long, but we'll talk more about this subject once as we get closer to the All Star break to say, okay, at the All Star break, at that midway point, where are they at? And then the next subject I want to talk about is the torpedo bat. This subject makes me chuckle because um, they made such a big deal out of it. And again, I can understand why they make a big deal out of it. But then as I started reading more and I started understanding more, specifically when they first were discovered during that Yankees Brewers opening series, um, it was like their manager, Pat Murphy, the manager from the Brewers, said, it's not so much the wand, it's the magician behind the wand. So his team wasn't exactly blowing these guys away. They were throwing meatballs. Nestor Cortez just got shelled against his former team. So it wasn't the Torpedo Bats, but they've been around for a bit, which I didn't know that. Not a long time, but they've been around for a little bit. But again, why would Major League Baseball allow these men to use a bat that was illegal? That's why I was like, why is there a controversy? Were they really illegal? Because like what I'm trying to figure out is, just like they check the pitcher's hands, right? Like after he comes off the mound, would an umpire let somebody come up there with a weird looking bat, right? Or a bat that doesn't look like, I guess, for lack of a better term, a regulation bat, and let them play the entire game with it, right? There was no protest from Pat Murphy and the Brewers, but the controversy was, well, what's a torpedo bat, right? Because this is a new thing. And it was really funny because I was listening to actually talk about it last Saturday. I was watching the Brewers Cincinnati Reds game. I was just going through my phone. I was looking at Fox Sports, and of course, there was a baseball game, and I started looking at the end of the Cincinnati Reds Milwaukee Brewers game. I caught the end of it. And Dontrell Willis, and I cannot remember who the co-host with him is, and I'm sorry, apologize, his name escapes me right now. But they were talking about the torpedo bats and informing the viewers about the size and diameter and all that and what size they are compared to a regulation style bat. And it was funny what Dontrell Willis and his co-host said was like, I would love to know what the players are saying about it. What happened to your producer? Do you guys not have a producer? Could you have not gotten somebody to give you more information on those torpedo bats? Well, funny enough, I did get the information that they didn't have. And again, I'm not blaming Dontrell Willis or the guy that was up there with him talking about it, right? It was, there's not enough information. So how can you go out there and talk to the viewers and educate the viewers if you don't have the information, right? So I've apologized a couple of times in this podcast for not having all the information that I'm talking about. But again, I promise to be better. I will try to be better. I'll try to make each podcast better than the next, better than the last, and the next one will be better than that one, right? But the fact of the matter is, during that week, last Tuesday, I think that Ian Happ's usually on the radio every Tuesday on the Score in the morning or the midday show with whoever it is that midday. I'm sorry, I apologize. I can't remember their lineup because of the recent change they had with the person that they fired, Bernstein, that they fired. And then Nico comes on in the afternoon show, and they talk to both of them on Tuesdays, whether they're at home or whether they're playing a game away. And Ian Happ, they asked him about the torpedo bat, and he gave them some information about who was using it, and Nico's actually using it. And I'm not sure if he's using it, but I know Nico for sure was using it. So why is that information not available to everyone to who's using those torpedo bats, right? If you just ask, you'll find out. And if they're talking about the Yankees specifically with those torpedo bats, they couldn't have lined up an interview with an Aaron Judge, who I know is using it. They couldn't get Aaron Judge. They couldn't get somebody to give them something. They came on there, on the air, on a national program, and had only the information of the bat. They actually had one of the bats with them, of course, which to Marquis' credit, they also had a bat that they showed as well. We kind of just talked about it and educated the viewer, and that's great. But the fact that he said, man, I wish that the players would talk more about these torpedo bats. You don't have anybody that could have verified what these guys are feeling with this torpedo bat, right? You as a former player who, at the time when Dontrell Willis used to play, the pitcher would hit, right? Now there's a DH. So again, he could talk to that. Not to say he was a big, prolific home run hitter, but he did hit. He knows what a bat feels like and the swinging and all that good stuff, right? But again, I think it's kind of funny that there's missing information out there. If you're so fascinated by this, I would think a producer would line up a major league player who is using a torpedo bat, specifically from the Yankees, and they can give you their perspective. And you can ask all the questions you want, just like the people on the Score were asking Ian Happ about those torpedo bats. I just think it's just kind of funny sometimes that these programs that have the resources and have the ways to get to these players, unlike me, don't get the information. So that's why, again, more the reason why I like having this podcast to kind of just talk about stuff like that I'm finding, to fill in the gaps and say, yeah, that doesn't sound right. I heard this instead, right? I'm gonna try to check in at different times and talk about like overall state of baseball and things going on and standings and all that. I'm gonna try to do check-ins throughout the season. So my next check-in episode, which I'll do a regular episode in between that, but I'm talking about an actual check-in episode to say, hey, at Memorial Day, right, where they say that's officially the beginning of summer, is that Memorial Day weekend and Memorial Day itself. I'll check in. I'll say, hey, this is the check-in for Memorial Day. This is where everybody is at. This is what's going on. I'm going to do one after the All-Star break, and then I'm going to do one at the trade deadline, and then of course September 1st when they call the guys up for the expanded rosters, which I believe it's 40 still. Because I know they carry 26. They used to be 25 during the regular season. Now they carry 26, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll check in at those times, and I'll have like a special check-in episode where I talk in literally just about that. Unless something's going on outside of baseball during those check-ins, then it'll just be a strict check-in special. Um, again, just on the subject of resources, there was recently a story about the Pittsburgh Pirates removing the Roberto Clemente, the number 21 pin or little sign that they had out in the right field corner, and it was replaced by a beer advertisement. And it actually caught some wind, and it was brought to Roberto Clemente's son's attention, Roberto Clemente Jr., who wrote an extensive letter to the Pirates and said, hey, you guys never said you're going to replace my dad's number out there. That's some, commemoration to him, other than the bridge that's out there outside the park of PNC Park. You guys never really said anything, right? That you were going to remove this, and just he felt a little disrespected, rightfully so. But again, I don't think that if nobody would have noticed it and would have called it out, the Pirates were not going to say anything, right? And then further on in the week, I saw an article talking to Bob Nutting, which is the I believe the owner of the Pirates, who was talking about resources. And he says that they use all the resources they have available. Baloney. That man is one of the cheapest people that I've known in baseball. So what does that all mean with the sign? I don't know how much he was making with that, making off, the advertisement they had for the beer in that right field corner out there in PNC. But again, it's more resources for him to put in his pocket, right? Forget legacy, forget one of the greatest players in your franchise's history. And no disrespect to anybody else who played for them, or Willie Stargell or anybody like that. That man was very meaningful. And I'm not saying this as a Puerto Rican man or a man of, a Latino man. I'm saying this as, importance of the game, right? I just don't think that these owners really understand that. Sometimes, us fans, stuff like that just reminds us of yesteryear, even if we weren't around to see that player, or even like my dad. My dad actually saw Roberto Clemente play. How's that going to make somebody like that feel when you try to erase their history over a few dollars that you're going to shove back in your pocket, right? I don't believe that the Pirates spend all their resources. Yes, they have Paul Skeens, and he's a phenomenal, phenomenal pitcher. But eventually, if he continues to have these kind of seasons and continues to just be just as dominant as he is and keeps coming up in these conversations, is he going to be his contributions are just going to be too expensive for you? I don't believe that. It's annoying, and it's also sad to see a franchise like the Pittsburgh Pirates have to depend on an owner who is just pocketing money and says, well, I'm using all the resources. We're doing the best that we can. No, you're not. No, you're not. Because you guys are not even in talks for top free agents and don't even try to make a run at it. Anything, right? You're just glad to just be the Pirates and just continue to exist in the cellar. That's just not okay. That's just not okay. And I think not to pick on the Pirates, that's a lot of teams that are out there that have a lot of resources. Cubs included, because I've talked about this in this podcast. Cubs included, they have resources. Forget the concessions. They have the resources. These owners bought these teams because they had the money. You or me or I cannot buy a major league team unless we get a bunch of investors. Because I don't know anybody else I don't know anybody personally who has enough money to go buy a baseball team. So you can't go buy a baseball team and then go cry poor, because you had to have done your research. You just don't go buy something sight unseen, specifically a major league franchise, and say, well, okay, well, we bought it, now we're poor. Well, no, you should have known this coming in, how much money it is to maintain the ballpark. You can sit here and you can say, we've done all these modern modernizations of the ballpark. We've built around the ballpark. We've done this with our scouting, this with the clubhouses. That's all great. That's all fine. But that's used upkeeping, right? That's like my house. I can say I've done all these repairs around my house. I don't have to do anything anymore. I'm poor. Well, I knew going in when I bought my house that I was going to have to spend money, right? I don't want to be house poor, but I also understand that I have to spend money. So these owners that cry poor, baloney. They're billionaires. Some of these men are billionaires and they just pocket the money, right? They're pocketing the money. They're doing something with the money. They're pocketing it. They're either pocketing it or they're spending it on other things, investments, political contributions. And I'm not going to sit here and talk about political stuff because I promise I never wouldn't. I'm just using that as an example, as a broader spectrum to say these men have unlimited resources. And I get it that you can't pay every player on your team $700 million. It's impossible. I get it, but you have to build around somebody, right? It's just like Jerry Reinsdorf, right? The man says, or at least gave some sort of indication that he might be, you know, or might even entertain the idea to sell. All of a sudden, nope, he ain't selling the team. Why would he sell the team? Why would he sell the team? I don't know what his plans are for the afterlife. And I'm not talking about where he goes to the afterlife. I'm talking about what happens to the Sox if he were, God forbid, regardless of how I feel about Jerry Reinsdorf, I am not calling for this man's death tomorrow. But let's say he dies tomorrow. Who does that team go to? Does it go to his son Michael, who currently is running the Bulls? Who does it go to? Right? What are his wishes for this beloved team he has? Right? Again, this man refuses to spend money and isolates himself from the public because the public's going to keep asking him the same question. Jerry, when are you going to spend some money on this team? That is great for you to build these prospects. That is wonderful, right? You cannot build a team by buying players, but you got to pay somebody, right? Who are you going to pay? Who are you going to build this franchise around, right? In the case of the Pirates, maybe they want to build their franchise around pitching around Paul Skeens, but then now they need a hitter because Paul Skeens don't hit. He only pitches, and he's a hell of a pitcher. But you got to build it around somebody, right? These teams that have sustained success, they built it around one player, several players. They build it around some sort of plan that they have for sustained success. Your Phillies, your Braves, even though the Braves are not doing good right now, again, they're sustained success. How many division titles do they have, right? That's when you got to start saying, hey, wait a minute. Yes, maybe we don't win the World Series every year, but man, let's try to contend. And then what I mean, seriously contend. Let's give it our effort. We need something else. What is that missing piece to get us over that hump? A lot of these owners will not do that. They're going to cry poor. And they're crying poor because of the economy. But I get that. But I thought they were the one percenters, right? That didn't worry about what's going on in the economy. Not trying to steer too far into politics because that's just not my forte. I couldn't really give you an educational really answer from that as far as politics, but I can tell you right now, these owners are not poor, right? It's becoming the has and the has not. The more these owners dig their feet in, right, and don't want to spend, the ones that are going to continue to spend, that's when you're going to get left behind, right? At some point, that stadium, it's going to start looking like it looked like this week when nobody wanted to go to Wrigley Field and you couldn't give it away a ticket, even though there was 10, 12,000 people. God bless them. Braving the cold. There was actually some of my coworkers that were there because they went for a work event. God bless them, stood for the entire game. But I'm going to tell you right now, that stadium can look like that if these fans are saying, I cannot afford to bring my family here as a family of four because what am I going to bring my kids here as a family of four to go see what? To go see our teams get our brains beaten in? Yeah, you're not going to win them all. But man, don't you think that a better business model, and again, I don't have one iota of knowledge of business, but I can tell you, my common sense would tell me is if your team is constantly good and you guys look like world beaters, you guys look like you can't miss it, you have to be there, you're gonna make some money and people may every now and then look the other way on that $10 hot dog, right? Or they may just plan to eat before the game or after the game, or maybe bring some snacks with them to maintain the kids, right? It's getting to the point where you cannot cry poor anymore because these fans, And these journalists, they know what they're talking about, and they have their inside sources, and it's not hard to dig in and find some of these numbers. And when these numbers start getting revealed, some people are going to have to start answering questions. Simply saying that we got to stop crying the poor. We got to stop saying that baseball can't grow because it doesn't have the contracts that the NFL has and the NBA has from ESPN and all the other networks and the streaming, because you guys are not trying to market the sport. Who is going to put TV that are just complete trash and pay, these fees, whether it be the cable companies or the RSNs, the regional sports networks, when your team is trash and all you guys ever do is tank to then become a feeder system for, better, well-off teams? I always call the Pirates, the Marlins, and, well, maybe to a lesser extent, the Rockies a feeder system for like the Dodgers, for like the Yankees, because these are guys that are good superstars, but they don't look like superstars because they're the owners that are holding that team together, right? So at some point, these men get into the sport because God gave them this talent and they want to get paid. Don't insult these men by saying you're not worth it, but yet because of I sold out my park 10 years out of the last 15 because we got the superstar. Don't know what the attendance is like for the Dodgers, but that's my next research project. I want to know what their average attendance is and what does that look like and their profits, because I really want to talk about this in my next podcast, because I'm starting to see more and more and more articles pop up on ESPN.com, The Athletic, people talking about on the radio that these owners are just basically saying there's going to be a lockdown soon and I got to hold on to my money. I don't understand that sentiment. I don't understand that thought. But my next podcast, I'm going to bring some numbers and I'm going to do some real digging. Hopefully, I can record one next week. It looks right now like next week it'll be a good time to record a podcast. But I'm going to bring some numbers because it's a disturbing trend where I'm seeing a lot of these owners I know for sure are pocketing money and not trying to put a good product on the field, but don't understand why their attendance are down. Well, why don't you come out to the ballpark? Who's going to spend the money on parking, spend the money on concessions, spend all that money to go see just trash? I know I don't. I love my Cubs, but it's just I need to see more. I need to see more. I need to see more. I need to see more of an investment on me as a fan to continue to maintain me as a fan, because I'm just perfectly fine watching them on TV when I can catch them and not have to pay for all that parking or pay for an Uber because I don't want to pay for parking. But for the most part, when I go with my kids, I try to just find a spot hero and try to park somewhere like in a parking lot that's not so expensive, because the parking around the ballpark is just ridiculous. But I don't want to go off on a tangent about parking and costs, but I will kind of focus more on that on my next podcast. The last thing here that I have on my podcast is, since I started this podcast, it was something that I had been talking about for a while. I had spoken to my family about it, specifically my wife Elizabeth and my two boys Nicholas and Nathan. I had talked to them about it because they always saw me yelling at the radio as I talked about it in my first podcast. Um, and I just wanted to thank them just for always just backing me up and just telling me to just to do it. That I had a lot of good thoughts and opinions, and that I should just share them. So I just want to thank them for just always supporting me as my loyal listeners, even though my wife does not listen to the program just because she watches sports, she understands sports, but it's not her thing. But she always supports me. So I appreciate that. So thank you, babe. Elizabeth, thank you so much for always supporting me. For Nicholas, when he tries to listen to my program as much as he can. Unfortunately, he says he's only listened to one episode because he forgets sometimes, but it's okay. I appreciate his support and letting me go on rant. And honestly, the most loyal listener that I have is my 7-year-old Nathan, who watches sports, but it's not something that he really enjoys a lot. If we go to a game, he actually really enjoys it just because there's that in between. They have like peanut faces and stuff like that, so he can kind of like get into like trying to guess where the ball's going to land under the hat when they try switching stuff around. So he enjoys the in-game experience versus watching it on TV. But he listens to all my podcasts. He asks me not to cuss. I try my best. I hope I don't let anything slip. I try my best to try to make it as family friendly as possible for somebody else to listen to it. But again, I just want to thank him again for always listening. And He actually reminded me. So, Nathan, there you go. I mentioned your name on the podcast. Thank you so much. I love you. And just want to say thanks, guys, for listening. And this is my podcast for this week. Thanks, guys.